Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you all for joining us for the information session for the inaugural Buildings Tech Lab. I'm Maria Gotch. I run the Partnership Fund for New York City, and we have partnered with the New York City Department of Buildings to run this program with them and to look for new tools for the Department of Buildings. A quick background on the Partnership Fund. We are a nonprofit impact fund focused on trying to create jobs and grow the economy in New York City. One of our key priority areas is working with government to help them get access to digital tools. New York is the second largest tech sector in the country, and we want to make sure that that innovation is not just used in the private sector, but also used in the public sector, given that it touches so many parts of our daily lives. So we'll take you through the background on the program itself, hopefully answer as many of your questions as possible. If you have questions as the session goes on, please send them by chat to Anu Sridhar, who runs the day-to-day, and then we will try to get to them. So with that, I'm really thrilled to introduce Commissioner Otto, who is the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Buildings. We've been working very closely with him and his staff, who've been terrific partners in helping us identify where are the areas where they are actively looking for innovation from the private sector. So with that, let me turn things over to Commissioner Otto.
Thank you, Maria, and I will be very brief. Let me just start with a big thank you, and that is to Kathy and Maria and the entire team at the partnership. Wonderful folks to work with, and thank you to everyone who's joined. This is a really robust response. I'm quite energized by it. Every time Gus and the DOB folks would give me a number of how many people we expected, it grew larger and larger, and that's great news for us at DOB. I just want to tell you that we at the agency fully recognize we need to innovate like across the gamut of the agency. We are taking steps and we're further down the path on certain fronts, but we have a lot of work to do. And so the opportunity to partner with the partnership to help identify entities and potentially new products and new ideas, it's something that we are really happy to be a part of and anxious to get going. The mayor announced a couple of months ago something that we were pushing behind the scenes for several months, and that's to allow DOB to go on offense in terms of our inspectorial responsibilities. For the most part, we're a complaint-based entity. We wanted to free up some resources, create a team to be much more proactive and to go where the data should drive us, to go to certain types of projects that the data show potentially more problematic than others, and to go after those bad actors, frankly, that the various data show have demonstrated a closer look. And so we were really excited to announce that we're getting into the predictive analytics game. The mayor allocated $4.7 million, and we're in the process of trying to hire up. And but that's just one kind of pebble of sand on the beach. We have so much more to do, and we're really hoping through this process we identify and get to build relationships with a lot of you. And then really identify a couple of products that we can run deep down the field with. So the last thing I'll just say is separate and apart from this process, if you want to communicate with the agency, we're pretty easy to find. I'm pretty easy to find, but this process that the partnership has built out is proven. They've done it with our colleagues at DEP and the MTA, and we're psyched about it. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for participating, and let's get on with the show.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your kind words and support. So I'm going to turn things over now to Stacey Matlin, who runs our public sector innovation programs at the partnership. And as the commissioner mentioned, although this is a new program with the New York City Department of Buildings, we run similar programs in water with DEP and in transit with the public transit agencies of New York. So it's a proven process that actually gets companies heard, reviewed, and in some cases leads to procurement. So with that, let me turn things over to Stacey Matlin. And again, thank you all for attending, and hopefully we will see some great applications from some of you.
Great. Thank you, Maria. Thank you all for joining. We have record attendance, and we are very excited to have this inaugural program be launched in partnership with New York City Department of Buildings. As Maria mentioned, my name is Stacey Matlin. I oversee our public sector innovation programs. We have 3 public sector innovation programs that we run, one in transit, one in water, and one now in buildings. So we're thrilled to launch this new program with DOB. I'm joined by my colleague, Anushree Sridhar, who's Director of Innovation Programs at the Partnership for New York City, and she helps run the day-to-day of this program and of the Environmental Tech Lab. And so if you have any questions at all throughout this entire webinar, please direct them through direct message through Anu in the chat. We will prioritize questions that we received in advance through the RSVP form and we will prioritize questions that are relevant to this program. And then if we have time at the end, we'll save questions that come up through the chat. But if we don't get to all of your questions, we will take them in and we will post all of the answers, all of the questions on our FAQ website, in addition to a recording of this session. So just to start off with the Buildings Tech Lab, as previously shared, we run a process that has been proven through 2 separate public sector innovation labs, which work to prioritize finding innovative technologies to help government in New York City government be the best and innovate as best as possible. So we have the Transit Tech Lab, which works with all the 4 regional transit agencies in New York. And we have the Environmental Tech Lab working with New York City Department of Environmental Protection, which on an annual basis has 4 key steps that this new Buildings Tech Lab will also enable. And those 4 key steps are: first, working with agency staff to identify their top challenges. And then the second step is we go out to market and we recruit companies from all around the world to apply. The third step is an iterative testing process or an iterative evaluation process where you submit online evaluations. We have agency staff review those online evaluations, and then select companies are invited for a semifinalist pitch presentation and product demonstration. And the fourth step is a testing process where we break that down into 2 phases. One is an 8-week proof of concept followed by a year-long pilot. And that's really to help the agencies test and evaluate the most pressing technology solutions for their problems. So this year in this 2024 inaugural Buildings Tech Lab Challenge, we have 2 challenges or process areas that we are focusing on with DOB. And the first one is around process management. So specifically, DOB is looking for tools to better manage internal processes to expedite permitting processes, building inspections, code reviews, and enforcement initiatives. And then the second key challenge is around data utilization. So how can DOB better utilize existing data to automate operations and increase staff capacity? And then these are a couple of use cases that are listed on our website. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but just note that these use cases are examples of specific types of technologies DOB is interested in, and these use cases came directly from conversations we had from DOB staff. But we are not just looking exclusively for these specific use cases. If you have a technology solution that can address one of these broad overarching themes or challenges, we encourage you to apply. A couple of notes about the eligibility requirements. So we've seen through our other 2 programs that the companies that work well in our process is a growth stage startup that already has an existing technology solution that can solve one of the challenges that we are looking for. The technology solution should be in beta version, so a working prototype and at least one other customer, should be incorporated and be registered in the state of New York to do business. If you do not already have that registration, we kindly request that you do so prior to starting the proof of concept if you're selected for that. And then while we encourage companies from all around the world to apply, please note that in requirements of city law, that all DOB data, which is city data, needs to reside in the US. And then the last key point is that we do have a series of program application terms and conditions on our website. So please review that. And in order to submit an application, you will need to accept those program application terms and conditions. And then just the overarching thing to note is that subsidiaries of larger companies are not eligible to apply. So we're really looking for those growth stage startups with an existing technology to demonstrate their solutions to a data or process challenge that DOB has. In regards to evaluation criteria, we have 4 key themes that the evaluators will be looking for. They're all equally weighted, and so please consider the evaluation criteria when going through your application. And those 4 key things are impact, product, team, value. So in general, with impact, really having a viable solution that has a positive impact on DOB's experience. The product should present key metrics that can show product market fit and ideally one other paying customer. For team, we're looking for qualified team members with enough resources to participate in the program and no conflict of interest. And then with value, we're looking for a new innovation that could provide value to DOB that can help improve efficiency in some sort of way. So in terms of what you get, we've heard from our participants of our other 2 programs that once they join and participate in the lab, it is really an incredible experience that they get this unique access to work with government, which they would have never gotten without this program. So a couple of things. If you're a startup and you're trying to sell to government, sometimes it's very difficult to know who to talk to, what the right people are, and it can take a lot of resources to even get to the right person to talk to. So we provide direct access to relevant decision makers and exposure to market experts. We're making sure that if you go through the lab, you will have DOB staff working with you in partnership through an 8-week proof of concept with programming and a customized plan to evaluate this technical test. And then if necessary, and if desired, a year-long pilot to scale and deploy your solution with DOB. A few key dates to keep in mind. So we have open applications until September 20th, and this is the deadline to apply. We strongly encourage, though, that you submit an application before that deadline. And then in November 4th through 6th is when we have the second phase of the evaluation process, which is the semifinalist pitch presentation and demo day, where if you're selected to be a semifinalist, you will come in person to New York. You will present a 10-minute pitch presentation followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. And then if the DOB thinks that this is interesting and relevant, you'll be invited back the next day to a product demonstration day, where it will be an expo style format of you to demonstrate what your technology solution can do to a broader array of DOB staff. From there, DOB will select the companies to move forward with an 8-week proof of concept. So you'll be notified by mid-November whether or not you were awarded with that proof of concept. And from mid-November to December, there will be that contract execution, scoping, insurance, and cyber. Essentially, all of the intermediate steps to make sure that you're ready to hit the ground running in January to complete a proof of concept. And then the 8-week proof of concept goes from January to February, followed by at the end from March 4th to 5th, you'll come back to New York City and share a final presentation of what you were able to accomplish through those 8 weeks to DOB staff and leaders. And then the final stage, if needed, and if necessary, DOB will select pilot winners to move forward in a scale capacity for a year-long pilot. So we are thrilled to welcome Gus Sarakis, who's the Deputy Commissioner of Development and Technical Affairs of DOB, who will share a little bit more about what DOB is, what DOB is looking for through this program. And then after that, we'll kick it off for Q&A. So I'm going to just hand it to Gus.
Great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here to meet all of you and to be able to share with you. And thank you very much to the partnership and to Commissioner Otto for putting this together. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for DOB, as well as for all the people that we're hoping to meet and work with eventually. A little bit on DOB. We are responsible for managing construction and construction safety and the building permitting process here in New York City. So that means we have a role to say on all new building construction, as well as the maintenance of existing buildings. There are over 1.1 million existing buildings in the city of New York that most of them were built prior to 1938, but there are still plenty of them going up right now, as well as plenty of activity in the existing buildings as we speak. We perform on a regular basis, probably hundreds of inspections a day across the city, if not thousands. The idea of our plan reviews, we currently have something like 3,000 plans, project files currently under plan review. That's not including applications that go directly to permit for electrical or other trade type work. We perform inspections on elevators, boilers, the what's called plumbing systems of buildings. We are looking at solar panel installations. We're looking at foundation installations. We are also reviewing new technologies that come into the city in the built environment. People are trying to use something new as part of building construction. We evaluate that, as well as one of the other things that we do, though, is we also respond to complaints. We handle enforcement actions. We go to court, issue violations. We help adjudicate those violations through our administrative enforcement unit. And we handle, also various temporary events. If someone is putting up a temporary structure for, let's say, a concert series in a park, if that requires a band stage, lighting towers, things of that nature, we are getting involved in the approval and permitting there. We have multiple systems. Some are older than others. Some are still brand new and under development to handle the various transactions we work through in a given year. I think we're something in the 140,000 development plan review filings a year. More on the given test cases, just to go through. You can imagine the amount of process management that we have to handle at DOB, including coordinating maybe with other agencies, but things such as tools to help us go through and streamlining the assignment of permitting applications based on the complexity of work, the skill set of the inspectors themselves. Digital routing would be amazing as well. It'd be great to find ways to more efficiently get our staff from location to location. Remote inspections would also potentially be beneficial given the advances in technology. We'd love to hear what's out there. What can you all do to assist us in getting to more sites? On a regular basis, staff are waiting, members of the public are waiting for a DOB staff member to come and inspect and sign off on their project. So any ways that we can utilize to improve and streamline and get us out to more sites on a more frequent basis would be useful in that manner. I think on the data utilization side as well, it would be good to be able to take advantage of the data that we have and analyze it and help us to understand what are the areas of greatest risk to us. And that sometimes is an evolving discussion, but how can we help to reroute our inspectors who are doing proactive enforcement inspections in a better manner so that we're not merely reacting to complaints, but we are actively looking at our data sets that are available to us to help us identify the buildings that need the attention, the projects that need the attention, or the bad actors that maybe need the attention. We also have lots of court actions and transactions and projects that are on our end, and tools to manage across multiple units to help track, for instance, the violation issuance and conclusion, because sometimes the first violation is not the end of the story for either the member of the public or for the department, and further action is necessary as things are progressing. So these types of I would say scenarios are at the forefront in my mind of things that, you know, a technological solution could help us better organize, route, and understand the scenarios that we're dealing with and use our resources to the best efficiency that we can get.
Great. Thank you, Gus. Come back to you in a little bit with some questions. So as Gus shared, a couple of the priority areas for DOB through this Buildings Tech Lab. And again, we received a lot of overarching questions around specific types of technologies. And really what this lab is focused on are technologies that can help DOB better manage internal processes and better utilize data. So this is not necessarily for broader building construction or for contractors' use. It's really an internal technology activation for DOB. So we'll get into some Q&A. I'll answer a few questions that are more programmatic, and then we'll hand it off to Gus to share some questions about that are DOB specific. So the first question is around what would make an application stand out? So what we've seen in the past that successful applicants can do is they, one, really strongly outline how their technology can solve the overarching challenge. So making sure that you address that challenge statement that you're solving for. Two, demonstrating the value proposition with quantifiable outcomes. So if you have existing customers where you've been able to save X amount of time or Y amount of money because your technology enables better efficiencies, please share those use cases and examples and those quantifiable metrics. And anytime you can refer to an existing customer success story, even better if they're in government, that's a strong demonstration of how your technology has worked in the past. And it makes the evaluators more likely to think that you will be able to deliver for DOB if there's that previous success. A question around how we plan to capture and share lessons from the previous year with relative stakeholders externally. So like all of our programs, after we have companies that go through the 8-week proof of concept program, when they share out their final presentations, we as the partnership, we go back and we create reports around the pilot or around the proof of concept with findings from the highlights from the proof of concept that we can publicly disclose and typically general insights from that process in that year. So that would happen probably about a year from now that we would disclose that. A question around how access to DOB data will be managed to participants. So this is a complex question, and it really depends on the stage of what you're at, if you're selected for a proof of concept or a pilot. But for this question, we strongly encourage you to look to our Q&A or our FAQ, and it will have the program terms and conditions on our website. And there's an application terms and condition, there's a proof of concept terms and conditions, and a pilot terms and conditions. And each of those documents outline the specific data requirements for each of those stages. So please refer to our terms and conditions on our website, and we'll hopefully can put that in the chat. The question is, will DOB cover any variable cost or operations as part of the proof of concept or pilot? And no, there is no funding provided for either the proof of concept or the pilot phase. We do strongly encourage companies to create a scope of work that is manageable, because we understand that you're a growth stage company and you have limited resources. So we work between the company and DOB to make sure that that scope is manageable in an unpaid capacity. Question about, does applying either earlier than September 20th favorably impact the evaluation of our application? No, it does not necessarily. But we strongly encourage companies to apply early, because we find that sometimes when companies push things out, they never actually submit anything. And so it's just an effort to make sure that you get it in. And if you have questions, you can ask us at any point before applications are due. So we've had a lot of questions about, is DOB interested in XYZ type of solution? what we would answer to this is, in general, if your solution fits one of the overarching challenge questions, even if it doesn't address a specific use case, we encourage you to apply. Okay. And then the final question for us is around the number of applications we're accepting. There is no limit to the number of applications we're accepting. We encourage everybody to apply, and we do not cap with a certain number. And we don't also have a certain number of companies that are selected to participate in the proof of concept and the pilot. It is completely up to DOB's discretion whether or not they would move forward with a proof of concept or a pilot. So I'm now going to hand the floor to Gus because there are a couple of questions that we would like to ask him that are more relevant for DOB. And so the first question that we have for Gus is, what is DOB's connection with NYCHA/public housing?
So NYCHA as a city agency is treated like another property owner. They have to comply with all of our codes, rules, and regulations, and they file with us like they are another property owner. They happen to be a very large property owner, so they have a large portfolio, but they use the same filing platforms and permitting processes that everybody else uses.
Great. Would data on short-term rental housing stock and unpermitted construction be of interest to staff? Example, address and owner information?
Yes, I think that's something that the unpermitted construction is something that would definitely be of interest to DOB. We, on a regular basis, are receiving complaints about work without a permit, and this is an enforcement challenge for us that seems to continue. And short-term rental housing stock, this is something that to convert property to be able to be acceptable for short-term housing. Short-term rental housing, that is something that one would have to come to DOB to build a new short-term rental housing. You'd have to come to DOB. We also partner with the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement, who has a particular enforcement mission around short-term housing, short-term rental housing.
Great. What are some of the biggest challenges DOB is facing when processing permits and inspections?
Well, I think the idea is that the volume of work coming in on any given day far exceeds the staff levels that we have, and we have to find ways to appropriately use our resources. So triaging the work so that we are handling the work accordingly to both risk to the public, risk of someone getting it completely wrong, as well as the skill set, managing the skill set of our staff to make sure that we're sending the appropriate staff the appropriate tasks.
Great. What type of data are you looking for from remote building inspections?
I think it's really a two-part thing. One would be what can be done to enhance what our inspectors can get information on when they go to a site. So for instance, you know, I'm looking at this both as drones or completely a completely office-based inspection where is there a different vantage point that can be gained from a different form of technology that otherwise an inspector would not be able to have? The other one would be, how can we utilize resources that could be located offsite from where the inspection is taking place, either to augment the inspector who's at the job site or to completely replace the in-person inspection with the remote inspection from the office. From that standpoint, all three of those would be of interest to us. Depending on the scope and the scale, there might be a huge benefit to the department for each of those.
Great. Is DOB looking for innovative data solutions for managing underground assets and utilities?
That area is primarily in the public right of way. So that's more of a Department of Transportation and all of the utility company purview, and those who share the public right of way. That entity there would be there. We do, however, interact in that realm when buildings require a new connection to those underground utilities. But primarily the mapping exercises that are out there would be outside of the area that's in our purview.
Great. Are there difficulties with project closeout?
Yes, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for us on, let's say, for a new building. For instance, customers are routinely, and I would say much more frequently, asking for phased construction projects, both filing, sign off, occupancy strategies. And that means that there's much more, many more moving parts at the same time. You can't wait for everything to be completely done to do your evaluation. So you need to do an evaluation here at DOB to decide whether or not something is, let's say, safe for a temporary certificate of occupancy for only X number of floors out of a building that's still under construction. What's the current activity that's still going on in the building? What uses are otherwise impacted if you allow this occupancy? Is egress being maintained? What other agencies need to be aware of this? For instance, we partner with the fire department on fire alarm systems. So there's all sorts of intricacies involved in that.
Great. And then are there difficulties with inaccurate as-builts?
Yes, that's definitely the case on, so on more than one occasion, I would say that, what is filed to obtain a permit and what is the built completed structure that is requesting a sign off don't match, which requires then us to fail an inspection and require someone to go back and file amendments to their original plans. So any way to make it clearer to folks that they need to update their plans, streamline their process for amending plans, keeping track of their deviations in the field, however minor, if they impact approvals and sign-offs, they need to be identified. The other thing would be open and abandoned applications. There are many data sets out there of building what work was started in this building, and maybe for whatever reason the project didn't come to fruition. Those old applications are open and end up causing a bureaucratic headache for us in trying to figure out, well, which permit covered the scope of work that we're seeing in front of us, and finding ways to close out those old open applications so we know what the activity is in a building is a challenge.
Great. What are your biggest pain points from GCs?
I would say in general would be wait times. They need an inspection when they are, ready for it. And that means that they want us to be out there as efficiently as possible. And I think that would come from a development inspection where they are requesting a sign off on a particular floor, or an enforcement related inspection where, they are looking to maybe lift a stop work order because they've corrected the condition that was identified. I think the other area from GCs that you would hear would be clear instructions on how to resolve whatever DOB's objection was, whether it was a development-based objection where someone said something needs to be moved before a sign-off can be attained, or how to clear a violation that was identified, how to get back to work from that standpoint. Those two areas would be their biggest pain points.
Great. Do any of your challenges or process improvement areas touch on public engagement or neighbor notification regarding building permits?
Definitely, that there are multiple legal requirements to notify adjoining property owners of active work on neighboring sites. This is a very dense urban environment where, we have many areas where we have lot line to lot line construction, and adjoining property access is needed on a very frequent basis to do basic maintenance work on your own property. Notification and engagement is definitely a must and an area of need for us as well. There are also many areas where property owners with an existing building who are not proposing to do any new construction still need to report to the department on an annual basis about whether their facade is in good condition, their parapet walls are in good condition, their elevators are in good condition, their boilers are in good condition, their parking structures are in good condition. These are all reporting requirements that ultimately fall onto the property owner, and finding ways to translate what sometimes is very heavy technical material to a lay person property owner that and the property owner's sophistication varies from, large corporate structures that own, buildings that are 2,000 feet tall to the single family property owner who, has never filed for a permit in their life and has never performed any construction work on their property. But all of them may need to have some form of an interaction with the Department of Buildings, and engaging all of those stakeholders is important.
Great. Is DOB interested in digital twins?
Yes, I think in particular, this comes around, this has been discussed on the sustainability side of how our building's performing. People have discussed using digital twins with us as a basis for future alterations, that they can be a baseline to allow property owners to share information about how their structure is built, so that when future tenant build outs, for instance, come into play, they have the information at hand, and we would have the information at hand for how the building is performing.
Great. Is the goal of this program to enhance DOB now or to replace it?
I would say to enhance everything that we do, anything and everything that we do. I think DOB Now is a great tool, and I think the enhancements that we're looking for are things that could be part of DOB Now. They could be an additional component to DOB Now, or they can be their own system, depending on what the product is that's coming forward.
Is DOB responsible for stormwater management or flooding mitigation solutions?
We're not responsible for stormwater management, except for the components of those systems that are within the property line of a particular building site. So in that area, we are responsible for stormwater management. If somebody has a dry well system because there is no storm sewer in their area, that is something that we handle. The components of the stormwater system that connect back to the city sewer are also part of in our purview, and we work quite well and quite frequently with DEP on issues related there. With regards to flooding mitigation solutions, the Department of Buildings regulates the city's flood regulations, including being the city's floodplain administrator. So all of the National Flood Insurance Program requirements are enshrined in our building code in Appendix G, and we are the primary administrator of those regulations. So any building built in the flood zone has to comply with those regulations, and we actively enforce them. We partner quite well also with DEP and the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice on the larger scale flood mitigation measures that are being sought by the city, where it's beyond an individual construction on an individual property. It's the larger scale thinking and forward thinking measures that the city is putting in place to help reduce our flood risk.
Great. What are some of the expected outcomes of the Buildings Tech Lab that make you excited to see come to fruition?
I think really the streamlining of the processes that we all deal with in our field. I think, before joining the Department of Buildings, I didn't realize how many people the Department of Buildings touches. You're going to close on a property, for personal purposes. There's an open application somewhere that somebody is saying you have to go figure out what to do with that before somebody will give you a loan. All the way down to, the neighbor down the block is doing construction work and I need to know if it's safe. Streamlining those processes so we can get everybody the correct answer as fast as possible and accurately, I think, is the thing that most excites me, because there's plenty of work for us to do. and being able to get to those answers faster is, I think, a great thing. And also the transparency, I think, that can come from technology, being able to share the information and distribute it widely so that it can be relied upon and be as objective as possible, and be something that people can point to digitally that, here's the answer.
How is building data captured and stored by DOB? What are the sources of this data? BMS, VAS, IoT sensors, work orders, inspection records, etc.
So we have data stored in both a mainframe system and in Windows servers, both also on premises and on the cloud. We have this data is really about construction related job filings, inspections, permits, licensing transactions, things that we've taken enforcement action on. We have all of those records. We also have, in some instances, I'm sure, paper and docket books where, over the years we have information recorded.
What CRM systems does the department use, and what sort of business processes and workflows do they drive?
Right now, we're using primarily Microsoft Dynamics, and it's, I think, all of our permitting and inspection systems.
And then speaking to the data verification topic, does the DOB own or have authority to grant permissions of data sharing and licensing, such as establishing API connections?
I think we do. I'm sorry, I'm looking through some notes here for that one. And we do have permission to grant that permission on certain types of data sets through data sharing agreements. But that's, I think, something we're going to have to go through with our attorneys as we get into the weeds of whatever the proposal is.
Great. And then as to the API creation tool, that use case that's outlined in one of the challenges, is DOB looking for a supported model, such as develop and maintain, or simply a developer's environment to enable DOB staff to develop and maintain API and similar integration paths?
We're looking for both.
And then where will data from the API or similar integrations be pointed?
Primarily to our CRM solution in Microsoft Dynamics.
Great. And then what systems are currently being used by DOB for facilities management, and what are the biggest pain points? What are you looking to automate? And what workflows create the biggest pain points for your pre-construction and purchasing teams?
So we'd ideally like to get a software system that could track and capture all the plans and seating assignments throughout all the facilities that we have. We have 5 geographic borough offices plus other locations where we have central staff in the city. The idea is that we have seating assignments and floor plates, throughout all 5 boroughs, that we need to track the vacancies, the who's moving where, who transferred. And right now, this is definitely a manual process. We also need a software system to be able to support records as well as fleet management, our materials, supplies, uniform distribution.
Great. And then if selected, if the pilot goes well and we eventually reach a procurement process, how long does the procurement process typically take to complete?
I think each one is going to be unique, but the scenario here is this is our highest priority, and we're going to be working closely with the partnership and with the selected vendors to get this done as fast as possible, and where we can streamline, we will.
Great. Anu, are there any other questions from the chat?
Yeah, we have some questions coming in, mostly for the DOB here. So I'll read through some of them. Given the volume of work impacts permitting relative to staffing, how long do permits usually typically take to go through from submission to approval, and how many turns in that process?
So on the plan review side, our current service level, depending on the scope of work, is somewhere in the 10 to 12 days for a new building or an alteration that leads to a new CO, 5 days for an alteration application that doesn't lead to a CO, something more minor from that standpoint. The amount of time that it takes to actually get to permit depends largely also on the customer and how much time they take to respond back to any comments or objections that we give to them. I think 2 to 3 resubmissions is typical, and depending on how much time the customer takes with the drawings, it could take many months, or it could be done. You know, we've had projects. We have probably 1,200 projects a month that are reviewed, approved, and permitted within, I would say, 5 days, and they pass plan review on the first shot. But we have others that are much more complex, maybe have more interaction with other agencies that could take longer.
Thank you. Another question about how the DOB evaluates existing conditions for inspections. Is the DOB using BIM to do these evaluations? And if so, what level of development would they expect?
We are not using BIM currently. Right now, if we are using drawings, they are what a customer provides us as part of their construction project. And for the most part, we are currently receiving probably PDF drawings of the PDF 2-dimensional drawings, floor plans, reflected ceiling plans, sections, etc., of the buildings as well. We're not opposed to receiving BIM models, and we'd love to explore benefits to us and to the public of us collecting BIM models.
Great. And are you using private data centers and public cloud? Are you using any hybrid cloud management system?
I think we're going to have to get back to you on that. That's a little too IT specific for me.
Sure. What case management system is DOB currently using?
I don't know that we have one.
Okay. And if shareable, how big is the plan review staff at the DOB today? Related, is all of the work done in-house or is some of it outsourced to a third party?
All of the plan review staff are in-house. We don't have any outsourced plan review work. We do accept, however, professionally certified applications where we will then audit the applications themselves. I want to say we have somewhere around 150 plan examiners, give or take, depending on additions and departures.
Awesome.
And
Great.
that's on the development side. Other units have, we have plan reviewers separately for site safety plans, electrical plan reviewers, safety engineering, things of that nature that not in that number that would add to that.
Great. Okay, so those are all the relevant additional questions that I got. Well, I'm seeing a lot more questions come in at this time. And just to let everyone know that we will, this session is recorded. So in about a week's time, you'll get an email with the recording to this session, and we will update our FAQ page. If we haven't gotten to your questions today, and if they're relevant to the program, we will follow up and make sure that your questions are answered. For any follow-up questions, you could also email hello@buildingstechlab.nyc, and I'll put that in the chat momentarily. Stacy, any additional questions on your end?
No, I just want to thank everybody for joining. Please check out our website because it has a lot of really good information. I'm also going to put that in the chat. And then specifically our terms and conditions page. There's questions around how it works and, the technicalities regarding data sharing and IP. They're all in the terms and conditions. So let me link that right now. please review this before you apply. And we're happy to answer any other questions you might have. We're available offline to set up one-on-ones, and we'll be here until September 20th. So please do submit your applications before then. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time.